Sorry, just felt like I needed to wait a little bit longer because we talk a lot about iPhone leaks and iPhone rumors throughout the year. All of the leaks and rumors just kind of ended since the new iPhones came out and everything, and now the cycle continues and we just keep going right where we left off, starting from the ground up. So I was just letting this moment sink in that it's kind of like, you know, all the ants building the ant hill. As soon as you knock the whole thing down, they immediately just start building it again. That's what I feel like we do with iPhone leaks and rumors and stuff like that. This intro's lasting too long. Today we're talking about what things we know about the 2020 iPhone lineup, things you should expect, good things, bad things, and all that from fairly reliable sources. So let's begin. So obviously I don't like talking about things that are so far away from coming out, literally a year away, but oftentimes this is when leaks and rumors can actually end up being quite accurate. If you recall, in previous years, the iPhone XS, XR, and XS Max screen resolutions and form factors, and even a lot of their features were predicted around the exact same time the iPhone X originally launched. So that means that these next generation iPhone leaks could end up being somewhat accurate to what news we have to go off of right now, and Ming-Chi Kuo also gave us some new information on them just this morning, so there is some stuff to talk about. For one, I kind of hate this one. I'm kind of angry about it because so many people out there were like, 3 years have gone by, that means there has to be an iPhone redesign, and that means that the iPhones are going to look far more like the squared off new iPad Pros, and they're going to be going back to that iPhone 5-4 squared off edges look, and there was no rumors or any leaks to suggest that, so I kept saying, everybody, look, there's no evidence to suggest that. I don't think Apple's doing it. I don't think they're going to change the edges and everything like that, but then, of course, Ming-Chi Kuo had to go ahead and throw a wrench in all my predictions and say, guess what? The 2020 iPhones are going to look somewhat similar to the iPhone 4 squared off design style. This is also expected to increase the price of manufacturing. Not only is it just a different aesthetic look, but I think we may have gotten lucky with the 2019 lineup on average getting cheaper with the decreased price of the iPhone 11 and the iPhone Pro and Pro Max staying the same. You should probably expect iPhones to be a bit more expensive next year. But I don't necessarily that's Apple just getting more greedy. I think it's honestly their decision to make more expensive iPhones by equipping them with more higher end hardware. So it's not necessarily that they're overpriced, it's just that they want to put higher end hardware in them. So what hardware are they putting in them? That's what we're talking about today. For one, all new displays across the entire lineup. So still 3 new iPhones likely dropping next September, not this September. 2 of them are brand new form factors. So we may have talked about this before, but I'm just going to recap it for those who didn't know. Apple's going both bigger and smaller with the next generation Pro models. There will be a 6.7-inch display for the Max, the largest display we've ever seen on an iPhone, 0.2 inches bigger than the already fairly large iPhone Pro Max, and they're also going smaller with a 5.4-inch form factor, still OLED of course, but definitely going to be a smaller footprint than the current 5.8-inch model currently sits in. Now we're not exactly sure how they're going to handle these new form factors. I personally think that it could involve shrinking the side bezels even further than they already have, because if you think about it, they would only have to shave off 0.1 inches of the bezel all the way around on the iPhone 11 Pro Max in order to get a 6.7-inch display in the same form factor that we currently already have a phone in. So Apple seems very comfortable with that footprint, the same footprint we've had ever since the iPhone 6 Plus. That width and height has been the same on iPhones ever since back then, all the way up till now. It changes a little bit year by year, but for the most part, they're all the same. So I feel like Apple doesn't want to go up from that and just suddenly decide to make a little bit larger of a footprint than the current Pro Max. I think it's a good chance that they're going to keep that footprint but shrink the bezels down so that you still have that same shape that fits in your pocket but just more screen to work with. As for the 5.4-inch model, I don't think there's a chance that they could keep the same footprint as before because the new screen resolution is far lower than that and they're not going to make the bezels thicker. So those of you out there who like small phones and enjoy something that's more comfortable to fit in your hand, the 2020 iPhone is likely going to be catering to that demographic while still retaining all of the pro features of the larger model with its triple camera and its OLED display. However, next year, OLED displays are not going to be exclusive to the Pro model either. Ming-Chi Kuo has reported that all 3 of the iPhones dropping next September are going to be rocking OLED displays, even though that mid-tier version, the iPhone 12, I'm going to call it for now. I don't like the idea that they're changing all these things next year, but we'd still call it 11S. That just doesn't make sense. So the running name for it, for me at least, is going to be iPhone 12. It's still going to be a 6.1 1-inch display, but it's no longer going to be an LCD display. So finally, they're bringing OLED to the entire lineup, and that should probably mean you're getting thinner bezels along with the new 6.1-inch iPhone, which could easily end up meaning a smaller footprint than the current iPhone 11 and iPhone XR. But of course, we don't know that for sure yet. They may just keep it in the same footprint and shrink the bezels and have beefier sides or something like that. But OLED across the board. Now, we talked about earlier in the year, there was a sketchy report saying Apple could be adopting ProMotion displays to the higher-end iPhones with 120 Hz, but that was from Ice Universe, who has consistently messed up on several things in the past, so I wouldn't count heavily on that rumor, unless we hear some more people also confirm along with him. But 2020 also sounds like it should be a fairly big year for the iPhone for several other reasons. For one, we finally get the outcome of the Apple-Qualcomm settlement, so Qualcomm modems will be equipped in the 2020 iPhones. Ming-Chi Kuo said in today's report that the entire lineup is getting 5G. So not like what we heard before, where only the higher-end iPhones, the Pros, would get 5G. Today's latest report is saying all 3 new iPhones are getting it, which I don't know how I feel about. I'm worried that that's going to make it more expensive, because right now 5G is still very, very early and premature, and it's not ready yet. And even phones that have 5G support need to be in extreme cool situations so that they can actually run at 5G speeds. It's not good for present-day battery life. So when you hear me say that 5G is not ready yet, I'm not just talking about coverage, which is its own issue as it is. The fact that most people who are testing out 5G towers, like, they can interrupt their 5G signal by looking at the tower the wrong way or walking around the block. Even like leaves from a tree can block a 5G signal. So the coverage of 5G is an issue in itself, but on top of that, we haven't really done well at making phones that can power efficiently run a gigabit connection and utilize those speeds. So that kind of has me worried about next year's models. If all 3 are going to have 5G, does that mean goodbye to some of those great battery lives we've heard so much about as soon as you start utilizing 5G? In which case, even though there's no 5G where I live right now, if I ever do get 5G, I may just turn it off and preserve the battery life, because I'm more than happy with LTE. But regardless, the Qualcomm modems are definitely going to be better than the Intel ones that we've had for years, so data speeds are going to be improving across the board. And 2020 is also the year Apple is scheduled to release their first 5nm chip, which should be a substantial CPU boost over the already industry-leading A13 chip. Which, is this going to make a big difference in day-to-day use? No, you're still going to be able to launch all your apps normally and record videos at high frame rates and resolutions, but that higher CPU speed should allow for other features that we can't even think of right now that are going to require that kind of real-time rendering, perhaps video bokeh, and being a bit more accurate than other phones right now that have video bokeh, which should go along well with the time of flight sensors, which are also rumored to be in at least the Pro models of next year's iPhones. We're not entirely sure if they're equipping them in the regular iPhone 12, but the iPhone Pros are definitely getting even another sensor on that horribly ugly camera back. Where they're going to place it, we don't know yet, or where they make room for the microphone. These kinds of things we don't know for sure, but the time of flight sensor helps a lot with 3D mapping and masking out shots for portrait mode and that kind of thing, so it's helpful for videography and photography. Other smartphones have done it already. I know Apple's not the first company to do it, but it's something you should expect in the next-gen iPhones. Now, those are some of the things I think you should definitely expect. These are things that are coming from fairly reliable sources, so I think you can count on them a little bit better than other random reports you may hear out there, like maybe the notches are shrinking. I'm still not completely convinced of that. I think the smaller 5.4-inch form factor iPhone is good evidence that maybe Apple has figured out a way to shrink down that notch, because current present-day notch on a 5.4-inch iPhone is going to take up a lot of that top screen. So unless they figure out a way to shrink it down, that iPhone's just going to look straight up weird. I also want you guys to not get your hopes up on things like they're adding USB-C or ProMotion. These are things that a lot of people, especially YouTubers I've seen, fairly reliable ones, throw it out there like we're just going to expect it next year, and that's pretty much happening. And I've seen a lot of potential iPhone buyers in comments and on Twitter say like, well, I'm going to wait till next year when they add all this, this, and this, and that is not confirmed. We don't know for sure if they're adding ProMotion to these iPhones or if they're adding USB-C. Just because you want it really, really bad doesn't mean it's happening. And keep in mind, like a lot of these things we talked about, smaller notch, USB-C, or ProMotion, are all things people said would come on the 2019 iPhones a year ago. Here we are, 12 months later, and a lot of that stuff didn't happen. So don't keep just tricking yourself into thinking, well, they have to do it this year. Oh, they gotta add it next year. Not confirmed. So I would say wait for some leaks, wait for some rumors to come first, and then we can start basing our predictions off of that. But a smaller notch is definitely up there in requests. Having watched lots of new 2019 iPhone reviews and people give their feedback on them, I think some of the top requested features have to be shrink down the notch or switch to USB-C or double up those storage options, which are all things I think you you should expect next year. My prediction is that the Pro models at least should be getting like $100 more expensive, but they'll probably double up some storage options. So maybe default them at 128 gig or 256 gig. So while you're paying more, you're kind of getting more out of it. But with all of the features they're supposedly adding in 2020, it makes more than enough sense that they'll be increasing the prices next year, as well as the supposed import tariff that's going to go into effect in early 2020. That's going to take 15% off all of the iPhone revenue next year. So not to mention there's a lot of 5G phones ready right now, but you notice all of them are far more expensive than their regular flagships. Galaxy S10 and then S10 5G and Galaxy Note 10 and Note 10 5G. The tech seems somewhat pricey right now, and you also have to pack a really good battery inside, so I'm hoping that Apple's A14 chip, the first 5nm one, is going to be really, really good at managing high bandwidth speeds with those 5G modems. All this for what, really? I mean, gigabit on a phone, how often do you even really utilize that? All you do is watch videos and browse the internet. I don't know, but it's just the standard Apple wants to keep up with. I guess iPhones do last a long, long time. So even though 5G is probably not going to be ready next year for the masses to start experiencing, Apple knows that people buy their iPhones and usually use them for 3 years or maybe longer. So kind of being prepared for a 5G future is a smart move, I suppose, but I just wonder at what cost extra is Apple going to charge for all these things. Other things we don't know for sure are what the new resolution is going to be for the middle tier iPhone 12, the 6.1-inch OLED now. Is it going to be the same 828p as before, or are they going to up it to 1080p just to get all the Fandroids to shut up? We don't know. Or if there's fast chargers coming, or if they're going to actually turn on bilateral wireless charging this time. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, but in today's video, I just wanted to give you the rundown on what we do know, and we can move on from there. So anywho, let me know what you would like to see in 2020's iPhone lineup. Keep in mind all the things we talked about in today's video don't account for the potential iPhone SE refresh in March, which would just be an iPhone 8 with a 13 chip for a lower price, like $500. That doesn't apply to all the things I was talking about. That's kind of its own separate thing. That's why they call it an SE special edition, but we can chat all more about it over on Twitter or by joining my Discord. So please feel free to fill me in over there. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.